I am officially back from my amazing trip to Oregon, and I am so excited to share it with you today. If you are new here, my name is Alex, and I have quite the adventure to take you on. I was gone for almost a week, and my trip was divided between Portland and Crater Lake National Park. This footage is going to probably seem a little bit more chaotic than usual. It's not a traditional vlog. It's definitely not a reading vlog. I'll be sharing with you which books I read on my trip and which days that I read them, but there's no footage of me reading. As a matter of fact, there's no footage of me on this trip at all. That was by design. This travel vlog is meant to be viewed by you as if you were seeing things through my eyes or through your eyes rather than you watching me experience everything. That probably sounds a little funny, but that's just the way that I wanted it to be. I didn't want to spoil the natural beauty of all of the shots that I took. So I hope that you're going to find this entertaining and enjoyable, and I will be starting from the beginning. The only book that I took with me to Portland was Guards, and I was already in the middle of reading this book. I was in the middle of reading another book called Death's End, which I decided not to take with me because I was afraid that I was going to have so many books back from my trip to Portland that I wasn't going to be able to fit it into my suitcase because it's a 700-page book. I regret not taking it with me, but honestly that's okay because I was at least able to read this. Our first day of the trip is naturally going to be the first day of travel, so not necessarily the most exciting from the initial leg of the journey, so I will make this part brief. We got up at 4 a.m., got on our flight. We had two separate flights, so then we had a layover in the middle, and by the time that we landed in Portland, we had been traveling for 11 hours. And it was just as exhausting as that probably sounds, but we wanted to make the most of our trip while we were there, and we didn't want to lose even a minute of time. So when we got off of the plane in the airport, we ended up getting on the MAX line, which is one of the public transit systems in Portland. I'll be talking a little bit more about public transit later, and we went to our hotel. We ended up staying at the Hampton Inn and Suites in the Pearl District. Loved that hotel. It was located downtown. It was near a ton of places to eat. It was located near all the public transit, and most importantly, it was within walking distance from Powell's City of Books. I genuinely enjoyed that hotel. I thought the rooms were comfortable, the showers were huge, there was a pool, a gym, they gave complimentary breakfast every morning. The staff were awesome. They were incredibly helpful, very friendly, and our first day there, I automatically asked them if they had any recommendations for nearby restaurants because of course locals are going to know the best places to eat, and they had pamphlets that were readily available for anybody who asked for one, and so they offered all sorts of recommendations: breakfast, lunch, dinner, and then dessert and 21 and over late night options. So we took a look at this and decided to go with one of the dinner options for Zabinto Thai Kitchen, which was honestly the best Thai food that I've ever had. So if you find yourself in Portland and you like Thai food, I would highly recommend that you go there. And after that, yes, we went immediately to Powell's City of Books, where naturally I got this awesome shirt. First impressions of the store is that it is absolutely massive and incredibly busy. If you are not familiar with Powell's at all, I'm going to tell you that it is a store that takes up an entire city block. And you might think, oh, well, that's not really that big. In Portland, a city block is quite large, so it is in fact that big. They are known for offering over 1 million books that you can choose from inside their store. They are actually so large that they have a map in order to navigate where you want to be in the store, which I was fully prepared for, and I saved my little cheat sheets, if you will, that I created for the trip because I wanted you to see just how prepared I was. So I didn't know how the map was going to be inside the store. I thought they might have like a giant printout or something, and I just wanted something portable to take with me, and I ended up printing this out. Yes, I am that big of a dork. I printed out a map, and I went through and I wrote down a huge list of all of the books that I was interested in potentially finding at the store. I had a lot of subscribers who were asking me, well, Alex, do you have any certain books that you're really looking for? And I did. I wanted to give myself options though, because I had a feeling, especially given how busy they are and inventory is moving all the time, that in the event that I couldn't find one that they said that they had, it wouldn't really be that big of a loss. I was able to find most of the books that I was looking for. The vast majority of the books that I got were ones that I had already been planning to buy, but there were some that got thrown in there that were either staff recommendations or books that just looked interesting. I'm going to be creating a video later on after this one that I go over all 24 of the books that I bought while I was at Powell's, and I'm really looking forward to going over that with you all because I have a feeling at least some of them are going to be books that you are interested in or have read yourself. What I didn't know is that they also have these maps that you can get inside the store, which are incredibly cute. There are some people who sell these online for like memorabilia purposes. I just want one for myself, but what's so neat about it is, yes, it does fold out into a giant map, which is much easier to read than the one that I took, but it's also a poster on the back, which I think is adorable. And I haven't decided whether I want to keep it as a fold out or whether I want to get the poster framed. We'll see. One of the big things about me when I travel on vacation is that I am a huge chatty Cathy, and I will speak to just about anybody who will make eye contact with me. So as I was walking around the store, I was so excited to be there that anybody else who seemed even remotely interested in talking to me, I struck up a conversation with because I wanted to see where they were from. And the coolest part about that experience is not a single person that I talked to other than the employees were locals. I had a family that was from Great Britain, a mother and a daughter that was from Tennessee, and another gentleman who was all the way from another part of the state, and then us, of course, who came from a completely different part of the country as well. People look at Powell's as a travel destination. This is some place to go because it is the largest independently owned bookstore in the entire world, which is incredible. I mean, that in itself is amazing, and I was so happy to see how busy they were and how many people went out of their way just to go to Powell's. The staff of Powell's have really curated an experience in the store that you are not going to get anywhere else. I absolutely loved it. I hate that Powell's is so far away. My wallet is probably the only one that's happy about that. I tried to get as many shots as I could without people in them, as I don't like filming without consent, but I'm just going to tell you right now that that's absolutely impossible. We, of course, wanted to go to the main Powell's location on Burnside. That's the one that's famous, but there are others around Portland, and I ended up asking one of the employees at checkout how many people Powell's employs, and she was asking me, well, do you mean at this location or across the entire city? And I wanted to know both. So she said at just the Burnside location, not counting managers, they employed about 150 people, which is insane for one bookstore. But then if you looked at across the city of Portland, they employed about 500 people, which makes perfect sense then why they are part of a union. I loved all the staff pics and the little cards with the blurbs on them that were so personal. And despite the store offering both new and used books, I'm very happy to say that the used books were in like new condition for the most part. Of course, there's going to be some books that get damaged. They just get damaged in transit sometimes. But I ended up buying some used books and didn't even realize it until I got back to my hotel and started looking at the stickers because they have just been that well taken care of. There was one book I was trying so hard to find while I was there, and that was The Golden Spoon, because I have two friends, Kat and Magnolia, who were wanting me to read that book. And when I initially was making my, giant list of the books that I was interested in, I found out that The Golden Spoon was located in two different parts of the store, which is something that they do with books that are popular. They'll put them in different sections to kind of even out people finding them. Well, when I initially was making my list, it was close to 20 copies available in the store. By the time that I arrived, they said that they had one, and I wasn't even able to find that one copy, so it's likely that somebody had nabbed it in the time that I was walking around inside Powell's. So I was unfortunately not able to get a copy of The Golden Spoon, but I do still plan on reading it eventually. If you get a cart like I did, which I would highly recommend if you're planning on buying any volume of books that cannot fit inside just a little handbasket, you are going to need to take the elevator. The elevator is nice because each button is color coordinated so you can see which section of the store you're going to. But if you're a chatty Cathy like me, as soon as you get in the elevator and you find somebody who wants to talk to you, you end up accidentally getting off on the wrong floor or the wrong section and then realizing that you have to get back on the elevator. That absolutely didn't happen to me. I'm not a mess, I'm just very friendly. It was such a long day that one of our friends that we went with, it was a group of 4 of us, ended up falling asleep on the bench inside Powell's. Got him woken up. We went down the road to one of the local music stores because Keaton collects vinyls and CDs. He got a huge collection that he was incredibly happy about, where we then headed back to the hotel and got some rest. Not before Keaton and I went downstairs to the bar that is connected to the hotel and got some calamari and a couple of drinks and just chatted for a little while. But that was how we ended the first day. So all in all, a jam-packed day 1 of our trip. I do want to give a shout out to the Portland public transit system. If you are talking about easily navigatable cities, Portland is definitely towards the top. So if you spend $5.50 per person per day, you can get an unlimited pass and rides on their 3 different transit systems. So you can take the Max line, the streetcar, or the bus. And we utilized the hell out of those on our second day. After getting breakfast, we headed over to a place called the South Waterfront Lower Tram Terminal, which is a mouthful, but essentially what it is it's a short 5-minute sky car ride with an incredible view. It's not a long attraction by any means, but you get to take it both up and down so you can enjoy views like this, which I would still recommend doing. Then, all of us being fans of botanical gardens, we decided to catch a ride to the highly regarded and famous Japanese garden. I cannot recommend this attraction enough. If you are in Portland and you're good with a walk, you have to be okay walking a lot, come here for some peace and admiring of nature. It's really meant to make you just slow down and contemplate and think about life. There is a koi pond with some of the fattest and happiest koi I have ever seen in my life. They were so adorable, and many winding paths that go up and down and all around. The Japanese garden has admission, but the rose garden is free to tour at your leisure, which I think is really nice. It's a test garden where new species of roses are created, and I never in my wildest dreams thought that roses could smell that different from one another, but it was incredible and we loved being there. We got really hungry and went to a local pub, which I honestly don't know how to pronounce the name. I don't know if it's Deschutes or Deschutes. I'm probably wrong on both accounts, but it was a public house with fire burgers and fries. Everybody got something different while we were there, and nobody was unsatisfied with the food. It's also partially probably because we were so hungry, but the food was still really good. If I had changed one thing about this trip, I probably would have taken one of the days that we had in Crater Lake, and I would have instead had an extra day in Portland, because I really wish that we had gotten to go to the Portland Zoo. Everybody talks about it and they say that it's an amazing experience. We were way too exhausted and we did not have enough time to be able to spend even half a day at the zoo, so we didn't incorporate that into our trip. If I had to rate Portland in terms of a city to go for tourism, I would highly recommend it, and I would go back to Portland. So if you've ever wondered about going there, go check it out. You will have a great time. Day 3 was an early start at 6:30 a.m., getting up for breakfast, and then we were on our way for a 12-hour journey down the coast. This was also the day that I ended up finishing Guards, because when you have 12 hours in the car, how can you not finish the book that you're reading? The actual time to travel to Crater Lake when taking the direct route is 4.5 hours, which is the way that we took to come back when we had our flight out of Portland, but we took the scenic route down the coast in order to get to Crater Lake, which is a great choice if you have a full day of just travel and sightseeing. So we stopped off first at the beach, which was so amazing to see and feel just how cool it was there. It was honestly the coolest, in terms of temperature wise, part of our trip. Now, I had seen the Pacific Ocean once before, and that was when I had my trip to San Francisco many years ago. Going to this beach was entirely different than anything I was able to see at the bay. This was a true beach. When we got there, it was low tide, so there were all of these tide pools, which I had never actually seen in person before, all over the beach, and there were starfish and oysters that were left out of the water, and also some really tiny fish. I loved these rocks. If you're about to ask me, Alex, did you get in the ocean? I did not. Not because I didn't want to, but because I did not pack any sandals for the trip. I didn't think I would need them because it was mainly going to be walking around the city and hiking. So I was on the beach very carefully, walking on the sand, trying not to get a ton in my shoe. I failed, but I tried. So I was not able to get into the water, but I can guarantee you that I would have thought it was very brisk. We traveled down the coast some more and went to this funny overlook called Cape Foul Weather, which I had never heard of before, which I guess is an area known for whale watching. And we didn't see any whales, but we did get a gorgeous view of what I'm told is called the Devil's Backbone. All of us on the journey were then very famished and needed to get some food, so we stopped off at a small seaside town called Newport and went on the coast. If you are a seafood lover, you must get seafood. So we went to a restaurant called the Chowder Bowl, where I ordered fish and chips and, of course, a bowl of chowder. Also, please don't mind the fact that you're now going to randomly hear my dog chewing very loudly on a bone in the background. I don't want to take it away from him because he's so cute, so we're just gonna have to deal with it together. We grabbed some ice cream and headed our way back down the coast again, and we didn't cross the threshold into the park until about 6:30 p.m. and arrived at the check-in for our cabins at 7, so it truly was a 12-hour day. We ate dinner at one of the only 2 local restaurants you can eat at inside the park, so there's Annie Creek and then there's the Lodge. We didn't eat at the Lodge at any point during our stay, so Annie Creek was for our breakfast, lunch, and/or dinner. I was truly ready to just pass out and go to sleep at this point, but I felt like I needed a bit of decompression, and I decided to read Garlic and the Vampire by Brie Paulson. And I thought that the story was incredibly adorable. I understand now why so many people talk about it. I gave it 4 stars. I would recommend it. I want to give a couple of asides here in terms of the footage that you're going to see while we're inside the park, because you're going to see a lot of what probably looks like mist, and I originally thought that it was mist too as we were driving in, only to realize when we got out of the car that it was actually smoke from the nearby wildfires. And I bring that up because it's going to play a pretty critical role in my story in a couple of different places, one of which is that the air quality during our entire stay was unhealthy and Keaton got very sick. I also wanted to give a compliment to Oregon because as we were traveling along the coast and seeing all these different parts of the state, I didn't realize just the vast number of terrains that Oregon had to offer. And I can honestly say that it's probably the most beautiful state that I have ever been in. And for that reason alone, you have to go at least at some point in your life. Even if you don't go to Portland, even if you don't go to Crater Lake, just drive through Oregon and you will not be disappointed. I changed my shirt to represent that these are the days that we're now inside the park. I got this shirt while I was there, and it has a Sasquatch on it, and I thought it was very cute. So we're now on day 4. Before breakfast, I decided to read Garlic and the Witch, the second of the duology. I honestly wish that these books had been longer. That is my main complaint. I just wish that there had been more story because I love the art style and the characters so much. The ending of this book is perfect. If you're wanting some books that make you just feel good and have some amazing art, I would highly recommend that you get these. It's the reason why people talk about them all the time. So we ate breakfast, and then this was our big adventure hiking day. If you are wondering what it is like for cell service and Wi-Fi and everything when you're in the park, you will not have any cell service, and Wi-Fi is spotty at best. So you are pretty much going to be entirely disconnected the same way that we were if you decide to go to Crater Lake, which can be really good if you're somebody who wants to disconnect from everything in the outside world and just take a moment to yourself. I actually got some of the most peaceful reading done when I was in Crater Lake, and I owe that all to the fact that I couldn't look at my phone. There were 3 main goals that we had this day, 2 of which were to go to the best views of the lake, and 1 was to actually get down to the water. Up first is the lookout near the lodge. This is the first place that I would recommend you start should you decide to go to this park, because it gives you a real sense of the size of the lake. You're far enough away from it that you're able to see everything, but you're close enough to it that you feel like you're nearly right on the water. This lookout has some really nice walking paths that you can go along to get some different pictures and views of Wizard Island, which is one of the main attractions for going to Crater Lake. It's basically a volcano within a volcano, which is pretty cool. Our second destination was the Watchman Tower lookout called Watchman's Peak, and it is widely regarded as the best view of the park. It is an old watchtower that the park rangers still use, but there's a platform up top where you can take some amazing photos. It is a 300-foot ascent and about a mile walk up the path going one way. So we definitely got our exercise in just to get up there. It was one of those paths that as it kept going, I kept thinking, how much longer is this going to go? And then it just kind of kept on and kept on. We went back down the mountain, and because we thought that that seemed like, oh, that's probably going to be the most difficult hike that we do all day, we decided to go back to the cabin to get some rest, which I'm really glad that we did, because what we did next really took it out of all of us. Our third destination was the hardest hike I think I have ever done in my life. Now, for people who hike a lot, this is going to be laughable and it would probably be no challenge at all to you, but for somebody who is unseasoned, I love hiking. I just don't do it all that often. This was pretty hard. It was an initial descent, so you got to start with the descent, which honestly made the climb back up feel almost worse, but it was a descent of 700 feet. So it was a very long path, back and forth in order to get down to the water. This path is called the Cleetwood Path and is the only place on the entire rim of Crater Lake where you can get down into the water. It is also the path that you have to take if you want to do a boat tour. We didn't sign up for any of the boat tours because we forgot to, and then by the time that we thought about it, they were pretty much all booked up. So unfortunately, we missed that, but we still did the hike anyway because I wanted to touch the water. I told the boys that, yeah, getting to see Crater Lake and viewing it from a distance, it's amazing, of course, but it doesn't necessarily feel real. It's almost like looking at a picture because it's so pristine. When I got to touch the water, that's when it really became real to me. A little interesting tidbit about Crater Lake is most of the year it is completely covered in snow, and we're talking about like 12 feet of snow, which is how the crater ended up getting all of its fresh water. It's some of the purest water in the world because it all comes from precipitation and snow melt. There are no rivers in and there are no rivers out. The park is only open to visitors from, I think it's May to September, and we went in the prime time for temperatures because we went at the end of July. So we got beautiful weather, but despite that, the sun never really warmed the water all that much, and I, in my infinite wisdom, decided that I wanted to fully jump in it, which I did. I would say, based off of how the water felt and talking to my friend Cody that we were with, it was probably somewhere between 50 to 55 degrees, which is the coldest water I have ever willingly subjected myself to. I have a deep abiding fear of cold water because I hate being cold, and I've always thought that people who do those polar bear plunges are absolutely insane, but I kind of get it now because jumping in the water was an intrusive thought, and I told myself, if I don't do it now, I'm never gonna get to do it. I have to fully get into Crater Lake to know that I did. And my friend Dylan fortunately did it with me, so I wasn't alone. And we had a great time, but I was cursing the entire time trying to crawl my way back up onto the rocks. The descent took us 28 minutes to get down, and the ascent took us 45 minutes to get back up, which honestly, for the air quality being listed as unhealthy, was pretty good. This was also the day that I started The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead. I wanted to throw that in there just because this was the book that I read for the rest of our journey, and I really enjoyed it. I almost finished it while we were traveling just because of how much time we had in the car and in the airports, but I ended up getting so exhausted that I didn't complete it, and I will be talking about that in a little bit. I'm gonna go ahead and skip to day 5 because that was our chillest of our travel days because we were pretty much just going on one easy trail and then going on a drive around the rim to the different overlooks. But the craziest part about that day is when we woke up, we immediately noticed that the air quality and the smoke seemed to be a lot better. We decided to go back to the initial overlook that we stopped at so I could give you some comparison footage, and as you're going to be able to tell, it's significantly clearer. It was kind of unfair that we ended up hiking on one of the worst days possible but that's just the way it is sometimes when you travel. When we started driving around the rim again, we came across this one overlook where we saw smoke coming from an area in the distance, and we were concerned and also incredibly confused because when I had spoken to a park ranger, he told me that the wildfires that had begun in the east and were blowing in had begun because of a storm, and lightning had struck and it just caused the forest to go up in flames. There were no such storms while we were there. We had no idea where a new fire could have come from unless someone had said it, but there was the fire brigade, the fire watch that was there monitoring the situation. As I mentioned, there was one more hike that we did on this day, and it was a very easy one. There were no inclines to go on. It was just a nice winding path where I got a ton of beautiful footage, and we ended up seeing one of the areas where the water had actually carved a path through the mountains, and the two giant walls of stone and then the small little creek that was going down in between was pretty incredible. And we also saw some deer that live in the area trying to climb up the incline, which they did a hell of a lot better, I think, than any people could, because they were just made for that. After our adventures for the day, I took a 2-hour nap and got up at 1:30 p.m. and then proceeded to not sleep anymore until a very brief 45-minute stint at 3:30 in the morning on day 6. We then got up at 4:15 a.m. Portland time, which is 7:15 Eastern Standard Time, and we didn't arrive back home until 3 a.m. on the 7th day. So unless you count that 45-minute nap and 30 minutes of being in and out of consciousness on our last plane ride of the night, I did not sleep for 36 hours. My stomach felt so awful by the time we got home. It was a combination of just traveler's gut, eating foods that you don't normally eat in places you don't normally go, and also the fact that I was just completely exhausted, and apparently I respond that way when I've been functioning on so little sleep. And that's it. That completes my 7 days of travel to Oregon and back home. And I really hope that you've enjoyed this video. I have certainly enjoyed my journey and being able to share that with all of you. Let me know down in the comments if you have ever been to any of these places that I've gone to. It would be really cool to reminisce with you about that. Or if you're interested in going to any of these places, you should definitely go to Powell's. At the very least, you should go to Portland. But if you're into national parks, try Crater Lake too. Until my next video where I go over all 24 books that I got at Powell's, I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day or evening, that you all stay safe out there, and I'll see you next time.